Hey there, this is Irvin, and you're listening to Resilience Radio, and you might be watching as well. For those of you who are watching, you see Amy LePage here. She has been having some conversation with me today, and this is our third recording. The first episode, we were discussing sleep, and then we were talking about movement, and now we're moving into parenting, stress, co-regulations stuff. Want to know more about Amy overall on any of those other subjects or learn about those, I really encourage you to check out those previous episodes. And in any case, great to have you still here. I think I should just hand this off to you as to what you mean as far as parenting and stress and such.
Yeah. So part of why we're talking about this is what one of the paths of the work that I do is working with people during pregnancy, preparing for birth, and postpartum. And also kind of beyond postpartum as well, and just offering support through either movement classes or body work or other educational type classes. And as a parent myself, I know that it can be a lot and that it's like we're nervous systems in relationship to other nervous systems and then other nervous systems. We're all trying to like figure it out. And so if we really go back to with a newborn, there's a pretty big shift that's happening for them as well to kind of navigate being out in this world around. And that's huge. And then also I think for parents, whether they're a solo parent or they're doing this with another person or whatever their support circle is like with other people in their life, all trying to figure out how to do that together and how to kind of relate to this small human being and these needs of this small human being. But then also they have needs too. So in one of my birth classes, I have this series that I teach called the Whole Pregnancy Birth Series. And there's 5 modules. And one of the modules is Calm You, Calm Baby. And that class's focus is about through this idea of movement and hands-on touch. So we kind of do a little bit of that for the person who's pregnant and kind of using touch as like a kind of down regulating, calming strategy and kind of teaching whoever their support person might be for the birth experience, but also even during pregnancy, some tips and some helpful ways to bring in some hands-on, and then also go over and do some teaching about infant touch or massage techniques, but basically ways to be with one another. And then also spend time within that module, kind of bringing in ways to kind of help oneself in the moment when we might feel like we are getting like, whoa, this is like really intense. And our nervous system is really getting riled up to a state where it might feel like a lot of stress or anxiousness. And then, okay, what is happening with baby and other children around at the same time while we're trying to navigate ourselves and these other beings, and then like who's feeding off of who. And so some strategies to help navigate all of that. And so that's kind of the focus of that class. And then also when I work with people individually, bringing that in as well. But I bring some of these tips and strategies into the postpartum movement class where people come with their baby. And so they're getting a lot of other things, and I'll just like sprinkle in like, maybe you could try this, and what about this? And so it's a way, I think, to what I've been talking about in the other classes is how to sprinkle in some of this support throughout the day so that maybe we don't get to a place of like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to lose all of my patients right now, because we've all been there. If we are taking care of young people, it's a lot, right? And there's usually a point where like a flip of a switch and we're like, I'm done. I don't have the bandwidth for patients anymore. And so it's like, okay, how do we maybe not get to that place as often or as quickly? But then also if we're trying to calm and soothe other people or babies, whatever, kind of the how we meet the energy that we're kind of finding around us, like that impacts things too. So it's sort of like everything can escalate, or maybe something that's escalating be kind of like brought down a notch a little bit, depending upon like, where am I at in this moment? Yeah. In the end, I really try really hard to present the information as like things to get curious about again and to explore, but to not give ourselves a hard time with or judge ourselves or feel like we've failed at the times when we're like, oh yeah, no, I don't have the capacity right now to be able to do that, because that happens too. So really introducing the ideas and the explorations with with a lot of gentleness and tenderness to oneself. Yeah, there's enough for people to feel bad about themselves about. So it's like not presenting the information in any way where it's like, I don't want anybody to feel bad about themselves that they or expect that they should be doing this 100% of the time.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not possible.
This work reminds me of I used before becoming a structural integrator and before being an OT. I was apprenticing with a rolfer, and we would Rebecca Riley, for those of you
Yeah.
who happen to know her, and we did a lot of forehand work together.
Mm.
And one of the things we loved to offer was forehand for mother and baby.
Oh, I love that.
And what we both loved about it is the adaptability we had. Sometimes baby comes in sleeping in a carrier and baby goes under the table. Mama's getting the full the full forehand treatment.
Yeah.
Sometimes the mom's like wanting to massage and play with the baby and the baby's getting a six-hand treatment.
Yeah.
Sometimes the baby's nursing and I'm working the baby's foot while while mama's getting a neck massage, right? And it
Yeah.
was but our philosophy was this is kind of a unit here.
Hmm.
And wherever we get the input, wherever the lowest hanging fruit to help this be a less stressed
Yes.
mini ecosystem here was going to be the best thing to do. We were not stuck
Yeah.
on what to do. There's a moment that my mentor was just so proud of me for, and she got a real kick out of where I had a bigger beard than I have right now, and the baby reached out to grab my beard, and I reached in and started working under the baby's armpit and just sort of and shook my head a little bit to keep the baby holding onto my beard. So it was the adaptability that you have to have when working with babies.
Yes.
Both mirrors, like sometimes we're stuck in this funny position and we're going to do a silly thing with a baby.
Yeah.
But also it speaks to realizing that this is, especially in that first year, especially in that fourth trimester, those first 3 months,
Hmm.
how much, especially if somebody is nursing that baby, that
Yeah.
unit that's one unit.
Yeah.
That's the fourth trimester, and anywhere you can help that unit's going to help that unit, which also
Mhm.
means take care of yourself, mom, because that's going to help the baby. That's
Yeah.
that's something that I've thought about. And while it's not a specialty of mine, I've really enjoyed when I've
Mhm.
done that work.
Yeah.
Do
And
you
I feel
have
like
any?
each
Oh, go.
unit, even if they're not in the midst of actually feeding, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like this, they're like together.
Oh yes, I was
Yeah.
definitely a unit even when not nursing. That is like their mama comes into the room and I having had a breastfeeding child, mom enters the room, they can smell mom from across the room, and the baby cries on the other side of the house. Mom's
Yeah.
responding to that. So there is,
Yeah.
and not at all to downplay father relationships. And I know
Yeah.
I'm using the term mother, but I'm slightly interchangeably with like chest feeding parent. So I don't want to, I want to be sensitive to trans identity, trans parenting and such.
Yeah.
In any case, I also don't want to downplay the relationship between a that a lot of this stuff can relate to a a a non-breastfeeding parent, that
Yeah.
there's lots of different nervous system relationships and how those interact.
Yeah, definitely.
But do you have any sort of simple, I know obviously when you get too simple that it doesn't apply to everyone, but
Mm.
any simple recommendations for folks when it comes to I think
Yeah.
the term is co-regulation, but sort of
Mhm.
helping your own nervous system and at the same time that you're helping your little ones.
Definitely. And then I think also that well, I'll start with kind of some ideas and then also just this idea of how within that co-regulation is how someone learns how to self-regulate. So there is that like
Mm.
that layer that's kind of being or that foundation that's kind of being laid down. So it could be as simple as eye contact. Eye contact, facial expression, talking, sound of the voice, those simple ways of thinking like that is a way of connection and communication and helping there be that co-regulation that's happening and kind of even like a response to um, a parent or some other person, whether it's a parent or not a parent, another caregiver, it could be another sibling, right? Like having that attentive attention to in those ways can be helpful. And one thing, like I think is a pretty simple thing, is if you were to imagine holding a baby And let's say that that baby is needing some soothing, and so they might be crying. And I think oftentimes there's this idea of bounce that we want to do to kind of help calm a baby. I need to stand in order for, for me to kind of like say this and like show it. But if I'm holding someone and I'm here and I'm like getting into bouncing mode, but I'm like, oh man, I've tried all these things. I've tried, okay, they're not hungry. They don't need a diaper change, whatever. The crying might be escalating. But oftentimes the bounce is going to start to get like up. It'll get faster typically. And the accent for the bounce might be up. And so if I'm bouncing up, I'm probably also really holding, besides just holding a baby, which usually brings a lot of tension into the shoulders and the neck and the upper body. So there can be this like up energy to it. And so I oftentimes kind of will be like, what if you widen your feet and you think about a down accent? And so that your bounce has a downward quality of kind of trying to ground downward instead of trying to bounce upward, which even me just doing those and kind of experiencing it in my own
I can see that.
bounce upward, I was like, my breathing was shallow. I started to feel anxious in my chest. And when I did down, it was just like, oh, my shoulders relaxed and breathing felt different and the whole energy of everything felt different. So even just that one thing of like tuning into the like, how does the thing you're doing to try to soothe your baby actually feel in your body? Is it soothing to you?
Mm.
Or is it escalating things in your own body? And this idea of like the wider stance, I think is helpful too, because a lot of times when people are holding a baby, especially like, I mean, postural stuff, right? Like they're holding a baby. I'm standing again for those of you listening. And if the feet are closer together rather than wider apart, like it's just even that much easier to kind of be like holding the baby and your back is arched and your pelvis is kind of jutted forward. And we're just in positions that over time don't feel great in the body. And just remembering widen the legs a little bit and then maybe even like a more of a bend in the knees, and sometimes that can just help people get like their pelvis a little more underneath their shoulders. And so if we can feel physically better in our body as well, I think that is one way that we can also be like self-regulating our own body, our own nervous system to then be able to take care of baby better, whether they're needing soothing or not, right? If we are constantly like, oh my gosh, my shoulders or my back or my this, our stress levels are higher too. So it's this mix of how can I take care of self to then be able to take care of baby better as well. And sometimes the take caring of oneself means other people need to help take care of you as well. It doesn't need to be that extra added layer of pressure of like, oh my gosh, like I can't take care of my baby. I don't have to take care of myself. Like I'm just, it's like you can see where
Mm.
thought pattern could go into a lot of shame or blame or guilt around how we are as a parent. And so I try to really bring into this like some body awareness things to help with how people just physically feel. But then I also try to bring in some of these other, like we were talking about, like, okay, what if you bounce down, accent down, try
Mm.
to ground down through your legs, right? And maybe slow the bounce down a little bit. What are you saying? Maybe you start to sing a song with words that are where you want like baby to go, right? How you want this to go, or even acknowledging, I hear you, you know?
Mm.
And so it's kind of like the words you're saying can be used to help you as well. They might not understand the words, right? But they're going to understand the tone, right? If it's said really anxiously or whatever, or if it's said in a calmer tone. So I think there's like all these little layers that you could play with, knowing again that you're not going to have the bandwidth to do this all the time. And that's okay. But like every once in a while, trying it out, right? And it might be like, oh, that was really helpful, and then maybe building from there.
There's two things that came to mind in that, and I think this is all great,
Yeah.
great stuff. One is the encouraging people to play around with how you're holding the baby.
hmm
And where your center of gravity is. Like I often see men trying to hold babies on their hips
Yep.
because that's all they've seen. Most men don't have the hips for that. So it's kind of awkward and funny looking. Whereas so also I'm wondering about like the baby doesn't always have to be up on the chest here, right? The
Ooh,
baby could literally be laid across your lap and you could be bouncing
yep,
the baby on your lap, right?
exactly.
There's there's
Exactly.
different ways to do it that both are better for your body mechanics, and if it's better for your body mechanics, there's going to be less tension in it.
Yep.
The
Exactly.
other one is something I love to do with babies if they're crying or making or fussing is to, and it's, I think this might be slightly easier for someone, a male with a lower voice and
Mhm.
larger rib basket, is holding them to my chest and whatever their sound is initially to match it, and then add more resonance to it, and then bring it to a more relaxed, like kind of. I did a much poor
Yeah.
demonstration that I really would, but singing the song based on their cry or whatever the anxiety they're
Yeah.
having, so that you're meeting the nervous system, so they're feeling heard and then redirected of this is a way it could be, is
Exactly.
um is something that I would enjoy playing with.
Yeah. And then from there, right, you could bring in vowel sounds, which I think is a really lovely way because some people feel weird about making sound. And so I feel like the vowel sounds is like everybody knows what the vowels are. It's not singing in case somebody has like a response to singing. So what you were talking about is like, yeah, kind of matching and meeting where they are and then offering them that bridge, right? To be like, oh, it's also this different resonance. And then vowel sounds just A, E, I, O, and U. You just even spend one breath doing each one. It's it usually people do the vowel sounds a little lower pitched rather than higher pitched. And it is elongating the exhalation. So that is helpful for the parent or the caregiver, the holder, whatever.
Mm.
Like, oh, okay, there is, right? And it's not across the board, but a lot of times in the group classes when I bring this in or bring it in with parents when they're with their kids, usually there is that lulling that happens with baby being able to kind of eventually follow into that calmer place. And it's like, okay, what came first, right? Obviously there's a little calming that has to happen, but if the person holding the baby can kind of calm and settle in their body more, I do think that that helps what can happen for the baby in their body.
Beyond a more sophisticated or developed nervous system, we
Mhm.
have, as adults, we have a larger body and a lower voice, even if it's not. I'm going with
Mm,
voice, even if testosterone hasn't really affected one's voice, such that those are our tools. Those are the nervous system. Um, that's what we have that the baby doesn't, right? And what
yeah.
the baby kind of needs, right? Is that support of I'm bigger than you, so I can take a deeper breath. There's no way the baby's breath
Mm,
respiratory rate's going to meet ours, but if we are able to be like, you're in this ocean of a bigger breath than
Yep.
yours, that there's something very comforting about that. I mean, there's a reason people like to swim with whales, right? That
Mhm.
long whale sound is way
Yes.
longer than we're and louder and deeper than we're going to be able to do, but there's something very soothing about that, right?
Yeah.
So think about what do we have as a parent? What in our
Mhm.
nervous system do we have that theirs doesn't? And I mean, the flip side, I don't want to just be one side on that. What do they have? They've got this malleability and
Mhm.
undifferentiated potential and noticing and this new exploration. So I remember just watching my baby and being like, how did you just have 30 different emotions flicker across your face
Right.
in the span of less than a second? Like, did I make that up? Like, would be like, did you see that? And they're like, yeah, that's incredible. Like, so it's like that's just like all those brain processing of those different things. So our the ability, the spontaneity and the exploration, how do we appreciate that
Mhm.
to co-regulate in the other direction?
Exactly.
So it's not just being like, I am the parent, I need to hold this down, to be like, oh, you're being silly in a way that I never thought of. I'm gonna bust up laughing because that's ridiculous what just
Mm.
happened.
Yeah.
And of course, way easier said than done.
Right.
Beating ourselves up over the fact that we can't laugh at the fact that our child's laughing or happy in the
Mhm.
moment when we really just want to get a couple dishes put in the dishwasher and we can't seem to do it. It's understandable that we can't always be there. But
Yeah.
when the co part of co-regulation to me is interesting. What can
Yeah.
our nervous system, in what ways can our nervous system benefit from the baby?
Yeah.
And realizing that there's a give and take
Yeah. And I think
fascinates me.
one way that could be, kind of to speak to that too is oftentimes talk about like, what if you get on the floor with your baby and not hold your baby,
Mm,
but like let baby be in this space of them doing their movements and things that they're doing, but we actually get down on the floor with them and maybe we actually mimic some of what they're doing.
mm.
So we get on the same level. They see us like literally lying on the floor next to them or in front of them. And then we try on some of their movements that they're doing that are building their brain, that are building like all the musculature in their body, that's getting them ready for scooting and sitting and walking. And I think can sort of sometimes be with that idea of like, oh, what did they have to teach us? What can we learn? What can we learn from
Maybe just doing a little bit of that can help our brains be more plastic and adaptable.
them?
And and you probably know more about this than I, but my understanding is that a nursing mother or a new mother, even if they're not nursing, but especially during the time of nursing, that your brain, that there's a lot of brain function that might not be what it was prior, but
Mhm.
there's also more undifferentiated potential, similar to the babies in a way, so that when someone does stop breastfeeding, chest feeding, there's a undifferentiated potential to learn new languages and learn new things. So
Mm.
I feel like there's some interesting co-regulation of mother parent needs to is actually being given the opportunity to have their brain be more like the infant brain in some ways. It is
Mhm.
neurologically happening. I imagine to some degree it's happening for dads too and other parents. There's definitely testosterone levels drop for men while they're holding babies, I have heard, and or around children more. It's not a permanent drop, but there's other. And what does that do for brain chemistry? So the idea that here's an
Mhm.
undifferentiated potential or somewhat less differentiated potential,
Yeah.
and what does that mean for us and our opportunities
Yeah. And I've
is
definitely done
exciting.
some yeah, I've done some learning, and I can't speak to it scientifically or anything, but done some learning where they've talked about how obviously at the stage where babies are, like everything, like all the growth that's happening in their brain and that plasticity, that also the adolescent time is another time. And then that also becoming parents is another time. And that's some of why there might be that like brain fog or not remembering things. I think people can either make a joke about it or feel bad about like it, and I think there's also like, well, what if maybe it's actually realizing your brain is working differently and different parts of your brain are being like lit up more because you now have this whole other role of keeping this human being alive, right? And so of some parts of the brain are going to become more activated, but that there is that time. And I've heard it that it's like people becoming parents, not just the person who like
Mhm.
was pregnant, gave birth, that their brain is more malleable at that point in time because their roles are shifting too. So yeah, it's exciting. You can find somebody who's like that's their thing, and you could talk with them about it.
Well, it's somewhat your thing, it seems.
Yes, but the more detailed.
Yes. Well, we'll leave the conversation there. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for the fun conversations, and I just getting me thinking about all the different stages in our lives and opportunities that those bring out, whether it's infancy and adolescence and new parenthood. Of course, it makes me tangentially curious about menopause and other stages in
yeah.
life that we aren't as studied in those ways. Yeah, it was great having a conversation with you.
You as well. Thank you so much.
You've been listening and watching Resilience Radio. I'm Irvin Eisenberg. We're talking with Amy LePage about new parents, co-regulation, acknowledging that we got these two different nervous systems and how can they interact in a way that's going to help each other. And that's never going to be perfect either. The music was brought to you by Aaron Marcus with their tune Some Biological Process. You can check the show notes for full credits on that. And until next time, take care.